Hello everyone here at Launchy. Thank you for joining us tonight online, or as you decided, some of you here in the audience on spot, on premise. This is the second edition of Talent Talks. Some of you I know that have been part of the first edition. With Talent Talks, as we started the series of events, we had a very ambitious goal to demystify the myths of what top talents in the tech sector are actually looking for at the workplace in their job. In our first event in March, just before the quarantine, we spoke about the real perks that rock stars in the tech sector are actually after. In the second edition, we will focus on a different aspect of the local work environment, and namely the classic job search competition between startups and corporates. What makes top talents choose a startup career over a corporate career? And the other way around. Are there any common factors that influence their decision besides money? Is it possible to have a meaningful and impactful job at a large company, and is such really stress-free? And on the opposite side, are startup roles always chaotic and challenging the work-life balance? These questions and others, and I hope also much more which will come from the audience, we will be answering tonight. And for that purpose, we have put together quite a diverse panel of top professionals. They come from different sizes of companies, they work in different sectors, and they are responsible for different business functions. I will start introducing them from the furthest point of just the opposite of me, with Thomas, who is the managing director of Bosch Engineering Center here in Sofia. Prior to his role, he held various positions within the Bosch Group in the areas of automotive engineering, key account management, marketing, sales. What's interesting about Thomas is that he started his career at Bosch, already joining in 2008 the Bosch training program, just after he finished his studies in technology management at the university in Munich. Just next to him is Ivelina Petkova, the IT project manager at the fast-growing document management startup Documaster. Ivelina has more than 10 years of experience in project and program management, also sales, marketing, reputation management, mostly in the IT and the business process outsourcing sector. Correct?
Indeed.
You worked both in startups and larger companies like HP and Progress. Further, you're a dedicated volunteer and the vice president of communications and social media for the Project Management Institute chapter here in Bulgaria.
Yep, the Bulgarian one of PMI Bulgaria chapter.
Yes. And just next to her, the other lady, is Severina. She's the human resource specialist at AtScale, also a fast-growing data virtualization startup, which is based in the US and in Bulgaria. You started your career in real estate.
Yes, exactly.
But quite soon you realized that people are quite more interesting than property. And after specializing in HR at the university in Minnesota, you switched quite fast to human resources, gaining experience both in corporations and startups. Today, she knows that working for a corporation is not her thing. And we will understand in a bit later why she believes that. Last but not least, Viktor Danchev is the mission manager at the Bulgarian nanosatellite startup EnduroSat. As such, he is responsible for the coordination of the upcoming mission Spartan, 6U CubeSat mission, right? I mean, you're going to explain what is that, which will fly on board at the SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket in January. Okay,
almost.
Okay. Viktor is actually a man of science, like real science, more precise, theoretical astrophysics, particle physics, plasma kinetics, attitude dynamics and control, as well as physics of superconductivity. I hope I read that correct. His career path raises for me the big question: how hard was the transition from a conservative field like academics to startup life? and he will answer that a bit later. And before we start, I would like to give also some practical instructions. Today's event, as you know, is hybrid, which means that we have the small and very exclusive audience here at Launchy, but we're welcoming anyone else also online. So the event is live streamed via Facebook and YouTube of Trending Topics. If during the discussion some questions pop up into your mind, you can put them in Slido. So you can either scan the QR code, or you just go on Slido or slide.do and enter this event code where you can put the questions. For with respect to the epidemiologic measures, we will not give microphones in the audience. Sorry for that. I guess you're used to that from other events. And we will kindly ask you to keep your mask also during the event. I would suggest that we start now. And my first question actually goes to all of you, to each of you, so that maybe also the people from the audience know about your organizations. My first question is, how many employees are at your company, and when was it founded? Is it a startup or is it a corporate? Maybe we will start with Viktor.
So in EnduroSat, we're currently 55 people, roughly, and we were founded in 2015. So we are currently, I'd say, somewhere in between. We're not really already a startup, but we're not yet at the corporate stage. So it's, I'd say,
Okay.
hybrid.
What about you, Severina?
So AtScale was founded in 2013 in the United States, and the Bulgarian office opens its doors in 2018. We have a little bit more than 60 people in the United States and 60 here in Bulgaria.
Okay. Quite balanced actually between the US and Bulgaria.
Yes.
Okay, that's interesting. Ivelina?
Close to Enduro, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah, Documaster is right now close to 100 people, and we are celebrating our 5th anniversary. Still, we count as a startup. And here in Bulgaria, we are less than 50. So I would say with the close to 100, it's like less. Still, it's easier to explain it.
Yeah. I guess it's not that easy to explain the measurements of Bosch. I mean,
I try. Well, Bosch is quite old startup. It's founded in 1886.
okay.
Bosch worldwide has 400,000 colleagues. And here in Bulgaria, we are having an entity for more than 26 years. And beginning of 2019, we started the team which me and my colleagues are running. That's the engineering center at Sofia, where we grew within those 1.5 years to over 300 people.
Okay, that's ambitious. My first question goes to the ladies, Severina and Ivelina. During your career, both of you, you have gained experience. How is it like to work in a startup, but also in a corporate? And also mid-sized companies. So you had actually, you know, different types of organizations. Would you say that the company size is affecting the company culture? How did you experience this? I would say, Ivelina, you're looking like you have an answer already.
Well, I would say yes and no.
Mm.
By saying yes, I would take Documaster as an example. When I started a little bit more than 2 years ago, we were between 20 and 30 people here, so a small group. And I gotta say that for Documasters, the culture is very, very important. It is something that we value and something that we care about, truly care about. And despite the fact that we have been growing slightly, we have been managing to keep it, which is nice, and we will continue doing so. I can't say the same for the enterprises. I have been working for HP, as you have mentioned. It has been dividing into certain divisions. It has went through Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, then also there was a merger with CSC. Well, in the big enterprise, maybe Thomas can say, what I have observed is that from division to division, you might have different cultures. And that is quite natural because you do not communicate with everybody. And something in the middle, a nice example, is a company that is still in the Bulgarian market. It may be known to you as Telerik. It is now Progress. I gotta say that the culture there, and that is what I hope we'll do at Documaster, was kept despite the company was growing. When I was working there, it was about 500 in Bulgaria. Still, the founders were keen to greet you, to ask you questions about your team, about your product, which is really, really nice. So yes and no.
They just got bigger, actually, yeah, after acquiring their latest acquisition. How was it for you?
So I believe that the size of the company actually defines the culture. I really enjoy the culture, that friendly environment that we have, that we are really supporting each other, helping each other, not just in professional, but both in personal life. And I really love the fact that we can lean on each other in any point of our lives. And maybe incorporates people more competitive, maybe more protective, and the fact that we are really friends, I really enjoy it. Maybe one of the reasons that most of us are recommended from another team member, like we love to recommend our friends, we love to recommend our ex-co-workers and even our family members, and that's makes us really united. And another thing that I really appreciated, that we have support of our management, and we never have been put in the position to choose between the work and the personal life. And I can say that we found that balance. And I believe that our colleague would support me, saying that we're really feeling free and to organize our personal life and our professional tasks without having any struggles.
And that wasn't like that in the corporates that you've worked before?
When it wasn't like that, yes.
Yeah, that's different. Thomas, how many years have you been working for Bosch? Something like 13 years already?
12, yeah.
12. So you joined just after you finished university, and you stepped into the leadership position of the unit that you've built here, which is focused on autonomous driving. And for that, you also moved to Bulgaria. So I'm kind of curious, how did Bosch manage to convince you to take over this job and to make this courageous step of moving into a country that, as far as I know, you didn't know much before you came to Sofia?
Well, in the end, what made me decide for Bulgaria is really the people here. I had the chance before coming here to meet with the colleagues I'm working with now, and from the first moment there was like a connection. There was something in the way we talked and discussed with other, which made me be very, very certain that this here in Bulgaria is the right space for me to grow. And what I mean with to grow is, well, as you said, after university I joined Bosch, and 400,000 people, 70-80 billion euro turnover. These are impressive numbers. But for me back then, what it was for me, it was a large opportunity to grow and to develop my personal skills, but on the other side also to develop something good, which is making the world a little bit better. That's what's driving me. And back then I already was very, very curious and excited about the possibilities and such a big company might offer, and one of those possibilities is of course going abroad. So for me, going abroad was never a question of how, it was only a question of when and where. And when I decided together with my partner that we would like to go internationally, there was this offer coming from Bulgaria, and as you said, I really didn't know much about Bulgaria. Yeah, I flew in here, it was September, a very ugly September day, it was raining, it was foggy, The taxi driver from the airport to the city center was shouting to me and I didn't know why. No? But in the end I managed to meet with my future colleagues, and as I said, from the very first moment it made click, and that was for me the decision, that's the right place. Because I'm convinced that what we are doing here, building together an engineering center for automated driving, is not really corporate, but also not really startup. We started with a team which is already working together for some time, and we grew it quite fast to the over 300 people I mentioned before in 1.5 years. We do this in a corporate environment, so we have like the benefits of having funding, we have the benefits of proper processes, and so on and so on. But on the other side, this team is working together for such a long time, we are sticking together, and it's also kind of an startup culture. We are trying to combine the best of both worlds. This corporate world of Bosch with 400,000 people, experts, a lot of know-how, and this team here in Bulgaria with now over 300 people sticking together, helping each other, and really having fun about what we're doing.
Thank you. Viktor, you have this academic background, which is very impressive, I have to say, and you actually are continuing on this path. You're currently working on your PhD. Yes. Academics offers one, in my experience or in my view, rather conservative, safe, structured career path. Can you elaborate a bit more? What is a mission manager? And how did you decide to join a dynamic startup as EnduroSat, coming from this very different world of academics?
So first of all, I'm going to answer the last question. I didn't really join EnduroSat coming out of academics. I sort of joined EnduroSat during my academics. And in a sense, I actually came from the educational program of EnduroSat. So EnduroSat, maybe to some people's surprise, it comes from an academic but very, very competitive program, educational program called Space Challenges. And EnduroSat is just 5 years old, but the educational program is actually 11 years old already. So actually EnduroSat came out of the educational program. And one thing that I really enjoyed, and the reason why I went into it, was because this educational program, while it was related exactly to space and technology, and it was the first practical program I've seen of this scale. We literally had to build a prototype of a technology in 8 weeks. So it's something like a hackathon, but you're literally given resources and you're told, build me this. And actually, even today, a lot of EnduroSat's employees, they come from this program we've made. And currently, I'm also coordinating this educational program, Space Challenges. And I must say that this is the thing that most of EnduroSat's culture is actually that. We have a space challenge. We need to build something. We know where we're going. We want to make the world a better place. We have a vision of how to do it, hopefully. And we try to make people better in this way. So we really believe in learning, and this is the reason why back then I was just impressed by this kind of huge amount of effort. So I started very early, doing some projects, working a little on this and that with the space challenges, and little by little, of course, after internships in EnduroSat, it grew to more and more responsibilities there. So I must say that the reasoning was that it really drove me to achieve more. So it's this kind of challenging environment was really for me, and still is the way that I can achieve much more. So this was the reason. Now on the topic of mission manager, it's if you look it up, probably it's not what I do right now, because come on, we're still a startup. For me, it's the person who must ensure that these satellites work. That's it. So the amount of resources, the amount of people, we have a lot of interfaces internally. We are young, but we already have our procedures, because especially in space, if you don't have your procedures, the chaos can never be complete, because people just don't care if you don't pass this test, you don't fly, and so on and so on. So for literally right now, my job is a kind of an interface between our management and our sales and our engineering, and in a way I'm trying to get the best of both and to make them talk to each other better, and of course for us to achieve and to help our clients achieve their missions, because we believe that our clients are the people who really make the world a better place. We just enable them with what we do.
Well, I still envy you for your business cards. I love the title. I'm going to my next question, which I would like to address all of you. The global pandemic has changed dramatically the way we think about work and the way we also work. It changed our working environments. And especially in the tech companies, adapting to remote working and distributed teams has happened really fast. And it continues to happen. Along with this trend, we somehow like the human connection. We chat at, at coffee in the kitchen. We start working with people that we have never met in person, which is also new. How difficult was for you in your organization to keep the engagement being physically distant? And would you agree that now in this post-COVID working environment, the impact of your work, the purpose of your job, and how much you enjoy doing your job has increased in meaning? Ivelina?
Well, in our case, I think that COVID and the pandemic did not impact us that much, even though, yes, we are not able to go to the office, for sure, which we very much enjoy. For those of you who have seen our office, it's very nice. It does have the rooms with the beds and the nice kitchen and everything. And it is a pity that we cannot go there. It is also a pity that, for example, I cannot play a piece of music before a stand-up so that people can hear it before coming. It's a pity that we cannot pass on a talking token between ourselves while actually being on the stand-up. It's a pity that we can't gather, but because people are open and are willing to discuss and continue to be open, the chat and the conference tools that we use have enabled us to do so. And I think it's the culture that has helped us do so. Up to the second part of the question, I don't think that I have lost the purpose, if that was it.
My question was in a sense that I have this feeling that if you don't like your job, because before that maybe we went to the office because of the colleagues, we were also part of a group. Now this is out of the question. Now we sit at our laptops at home and we must enjoy what we're doing, otherwise we're lost. Would you agree with that? Or is it somehow also being part of an organization, part of a community that keeps the engagement in the organization?
I think that, yes, it's being part of a community that keeps people together. And also, we do different activities. Actually, our HRs do that. Fridays, gathering together, telling stories, trying to figure out which beer is what after they have shipped us beers, which is really nice. So I believe a team is keeping together as a team even throughout COVID and after the pandemic and during the pandemic, actually.
Okay, so physical distancing has not been hindering the engagement in the organization?
Engagement, not.
No. How was it at AtScale?
Okay,
You can actually answer the question from a very different
Yes.
perspective because you're in HR.
I will share my experience. I actually started my work in AtScale in the beginning of March. So I visit our office just once, and the very next day we had to close it. So in the beginning was, wow, what's we gonna do now? But the truth is that, yes, the beginning it was difficult for every one of us because it's something new. But we managed to organize our work really good, and I can say that we are now even more productive. Yes, I miss those talks late in the afternoon with the colleagues, but the truth is that we communicate every day. We are making a Zoom calls, we are putting the cameras on, and phone calls, and we keep in touch. I even have to say that we managed to double our team. Since March, we were 30 people, now we are 60. And
So you onboarded 30 people in remote work?
Yes.
Remote mode. Wow.
With the help of the whole team. We work, as a team, helping each other a lot, as I mentioned in the beginning. So I am not. I can say that COVID does not change anything for me. I love to communicate with people, and I'm still communicating with all of our peers each and every day. And we are really keeping being that friendly and engaged with the company.
Thomas, you mentioned that as you started in Sofia, it was the team that drove your decision. How was it for you during the COVID situation and social distancing? Are you still in remote mode?
Yes and no. So we are right now working with a maximum of 20% of our people at a maximum at the same time in our office and 80% working from home. And it was a big challenge for us, and it honestly is still a challenge for us, yeah, because I mean, we are here in Bulgaria with the engineering center, with the Bosch engineering center for 1.5 years, so it's quite a new organization. We are still onboarding people. Every month we have around about 10 people starting with us, and I think there are 3 things which helped us to ease the situation, but they not completely solved the situation. So first of all, what helped a lot is we have a great HR team who came up with a lot of creative ideas how to keep the team together also in a virtual way. Also setting up a really profound program for the newbies, how to become part of our organization, of our family. The second thing is also what you mentioned. Some of our people, or the majority of our people, are working together for 4 or 5 years, and some working together for over 15 years. So these are like ties which will not break if you don't see each other for half a year. This helps really a lot. Yeah. And number 3 is also going in the direction of purpose. Every colleague of us really loves what he is doing. We really love to make the automotive world better and safer by developing something for driver assistance and automated driving. And with this purpose in mind, I don't care too much if I sit in my office or if I sit in front of my computer at home, for the time being, yeah, because now I'm coming to the downside why I'm saying it's still a challenge. I miss my colleagues. I miss hanging out with them, having lunch together and coffee, having a beer afterwards. And this is something with all those virtual measures we are setting up, you cannot counterbalance. So honestly, I'm still in the period of getting used to this new normal, and we are still looking for good creative ideas how to make it even better. So that's why the spear thing I like a lot, yeah. So thanks for the hint. We might introduce this. Yes, I know. We might introduce this as well, and also, and I think that's really, we have to keep our minds open, and we have to change, and also watch very, very carefully what is happening with ourselves, what is happening with my colleague next to me, what is helping. What is happening with our project. So I think we need a lot of more awareness when you are in this more remote mode. And with this, we are positive that we will master the situation, but there's still a way to go.
Yes. Viktor, how do you build satellites in remote mode?
Yeah, so in our case, we could never be fully remote, of course, because we have some mechanical and hardware tasks, but we are in a very similar mode as actually as what Tom described. And I believe that actually COVID in some sense might have even assisted us in setting up some procedures earlier than we would have, because having to go home and having to work remotely, it makes certain communication easier if you introduce additional procedures. So it might actually have been an engine of change, especially for some digital tools which otherwise might have taken longer. But overall, it didn't really impact us. This is very lucky for us. The satellite business luckily was not impacted, because in these times it was even more necessary. And in our company, we don't have an HR, by the way, so you're aware. But we also managed to double the team since March. We were about 25, 26 then. Now we're maybe even 55. I stopped counting because we grow a lot. But we also managed to do this doubling. It was certainly interesting having people working with them for a few weeks or a few months, and then meeting them for the first time personally. But I think that once again, it in some senses it helped us, and certainly didn't stop our momentum. And we even used this time and we continued some of our traditions. We have a lot of learning traditions in EnduroSat. We do presentations quite oftenly, which are related to learning new things. And we use our own funded online educational platform for these things. So we were doing even online events, even online beer, which was an interesting experience. So everyone buys their own, of course. And but overall, I think that the COVID did not really influence us in any negative way, majorly.
Thank you. Ivelina, you mentioned that before that you really love going to your office and that you made it kind of, really cozy. I was there once too, and I was kind of surprised because I had to take off my shoes. So even before, the homes became our offices, your office was designed like a home. And you call this Hygge, right?
Hygge.
Hygge, I'm sorry, Hygge. Can you elaborate a bit more? And can you tell me also, because you're, 800 people, but you're still a startup and you're functioning to the dynamics on the market also as a startup, how is this feeling cozy and at home and corresponding with addressing the market needs and the trends, especially during COVID times, now that we needed to pivot and react really fast?
Yep. So indeed, the office is a nice one. I would say answers the idea of Hygge. I'm probably not pronouncing it correctly enough, as it's a Norwegian word, and I only speak a little bit of Norwegian. For people who speak German, it would be called Gemütlichkeit. And for people in Canada, they call it hominess. As Mike Viking, who is a Danish guy, says, he's a book author and the CEO of the Institute for Happiness Research in Denmark. As he puts it, it's not about things, Hygge, it's about the experience and the atmosphere. And it's about feeling safe, feeling shielded, and to let your guard down. So that's it when it comes to Hygge. And our office, yes, it does help us to go there. You cannot see people with shoes. You can see them in slippers and socks, which is nice. And it kind of gives you the home atmosphere. But on top of that, something that we do strive to do is to be open and to solve tasks and to work for topics, goals, issues, problems, etc. Instead of the opposite. So it has helped us, and we have strived to adapt to client needs and market needs. Everybody has to do that, actually, enterprises as well, not only us. So I can only say that it has helped us to be together and to solve those in a more, in a better manner.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So in a way, this Hygge culture.
You're getting better.
Oh, I'm getting better. Yeah, I speak a bit of German. It's keeping the cohesion in the team. Would you say so?
Yeah, and to feel good, to feel at home, to feel if you want even welcome, to share feedback, which is also very important for us. So yeah, to feel good and in your shoes, if I can say so.
Mm. Mm. Let's go on the other opposite, maybe. I mean, you can correct me, Thomas. So typical for large organizations, especially if they're German, like Bosch, I would expect that well-established processes, best practices, hierarchy, and hierarchical structures, I never really learned how to pronounce this word, are, part of the DNA. For professionals who do not want to work in chaos, this can be a perk. But at the same time, this specific might be also an obstacle for innovation. Would you say this is true, or is it just a myth? And being in charge of a unit that focuses mostly on inventing the future of autonomous driving, how do you foster innovative mindset at the Bosch Engineering Center?
So to your first part of the question, in my opinion, this myth was existing at least a decade or 2 decades ago, and there are still some leftovers of this myth. Big corporations exist because there are some synergies between different part of businesses. When they would be on their own, so synergies would not exist. Yeah, so you always needed some structure, some processes, as you named it. But on the other side, and now I'm specifically talking about Bosch, we are facing more and more competitors who are not coming with this setup, who are more coming out of a startup environment, who are maybe coming from Asia, from the US, and they are completely different in their mindset and how they act. And that's why also Bosch is for over 15 years now driving into direction to give more independence to local units. I don't want to say that everything is perfect in our company. Of course, there are some structures, there are some processes, but for me it's again about combining the best of both worlds, what we are doing here in Sofia. What I mean with this, yes, our vision is to really to stop the war on the streets with great innovative solutions. These solutions, they have to work. It's probably the same, yeah, with your business. Yeah, you need some processes to make sure that what you develop is working in the end. So my colleagues and me, we have this mindset that the processes which we work with, we like them because they help us to do our business in the right way. And of course there are some processes which are not good, not helping us, and then we have the mindset that we change those processes. Yeah? We make them better so that they help us to do the business in the right way. So that's the first important thing. The second important thing is, how do we foster innovation? And we foster innovation in a way that we are making up freedom for each and every colleague, telling him, be innovative, that's what we want to reach, but how you reach the way, it's up to you. And we foster this with providing a nice environment, like nice offices, a lot of openness about our targets, what's the current situation, also what are hurdles, and also to really ask the colleague, what are you need? What do you need? What are you asking for to be innovative? And then also, of course, we also set up some very specific programs in the terms of development, in technical skills, but also in personality skills. We have set up a nice program for an innovation process where people can apply with their own patents and also bring in their ideas. And with this scaled approach of company measures, company framework, and also startup thinking and startup activities, I'm very convinced that we get the best of both worlds.
Mm. Can I throw this question to you, Viktor, as well? Because I thought that maybe it's a nice comparison. How was it? How is it for you to? Is it? Do you experience the setup at EnduroSat sometimes maybe too messy? Would you like to have some more processes and some more structure?
I would use a phrase which Gentry Lee, he's a system engineer of NASA, he used this phrase to describe NASA prior to the Apollo mission. He said controlled chaos. So I would use this phrase in a sense that we have been really in the beginning, we have been completely one floor structure with everyone talking to everyone. We have only recently had in the past 1-2 years really had to make a hierarchical structure, as you say. And we see the benefit of processes, but we are really results driven. So if we see that the process is slowing down our results, we kill it and we make a new one. And we are really trying to see best practices. We're trying to see what works for us. Not everything so far we've seen, not everything that is considered the best practice for a bigger company works well for a small company. And especially some processes in the space sector can be super restrictive because sometimes, especially big aerospace companies, they literally work for tens of years for every small feature. And this is something that a startup cannot afford. As our CEO likes to say, a startup, there's two types of startup, fast ones and dead ones. So, so basically, we are somewhere in between. We have this structure already. We are following it. We are trying to make it work for us, but we are constantly tweaking it, and we're constantly trying to fit it so that as we grow, it will probably at some point develop into something more corporate. But we would really like and always try to have these small teams, small squadrons that work independently, that have chaos inside of them, but really report to one wingmaster. If I would use some Star Wars references, and on the higher level we have a nice structure that tries to work together. Of course, this doesn't always work, but so far we are seeing good results with this approach. And I think that this is the key, to find the balance between procedures and very strict, let's say, procedures and the chaos somewhere in between.
Okay. Severina, you were quite certain that cooperation and corporate life is not for you. Would you agree that working in a larger organization makes the contribution and the impact of the individual in this organization less visible? Would you say that feeling recognized and appreciated for the work done has little to do with the company size, or the other way around?
Okay, based on my experience, I can say that in a small size company, it's much more easier to recognize a good talent. You work with all of the teams, you work with the management, and the impact actually can be seen from all of the people in the small size company. Actually, the contribution of even one person can impact the whole company. And what actually I'm seeing in the corporate world, they recognize much more the contribution of a team, not so much of a team member. And that can be very disruptive, because some of the top motivation things for a person can be to be recognized from a peer, recognized for his manager, and to feel that that person is contributing for the company they're working for. And we have all the things in our company. I'm seeing pretty much all the time that I'm hearing that person is great and so talented. I cannot believe we have such great talent here in AtScale Bulgaria and in AtScale United States. So yes, I believe that people's contribution can be much more easily recognized in the small size company.
Thomas?
I agree.
Would you agree?
I agree.
Do you feel sometimes, I don't know, invisible in the large organization, or your work is like it's not recognized enough, or?
No, I completely agree to what you are saying, that it takes more effort. Nevertheless, it's my strong belief that it's a leadership task to exactly counterbalance these disadvantages that you have out of your pure size. So my colleagues and me in the leadership team, we have together the clear prioritization that we want to create very innovative solutions with our family, with our team. And of course, we also want to do good things for Bosch, we want to do good things for the local market, for Sofia, Bulgaria, but the clear prioritization is about innovation and our team. And this means that we put our colleagues in the center of everything what we are doing, and we explain to everybody what we expect from him, but also we listen what he expects from us, and we go in a dialogue about what are responsibilities and how do you contribute, how do you drive this overall mission of making the automotive world safer. That's the first thing, to really be clear and transparent what's your contribution. The second thing is also that we always take the performance of our colleagues not as something granted. Yeah? We really, one of the nicest things I liked about my job is saying thank you to the people who really do the work, and they do it in such a great way, especially also, as we discussed before, through the pandemic time, sitting at home and having not so much distraction from the pure work in front of the computer. And this is something what I value so much, and I allow myself to say that also our colleagues see this contribution which the leadership team at Bosch is doing, to value them and giving us back the feedback that they like working with us, because we really put them on the stage and you are the heroes of our great products.
So recognition, appreciation is maybe still possible, but it moves in a way to the middle management or other leadership positions.
It's of course also the role of middle management, of team manager, and so on and so on. But nevertheless, it's also the role of every management level. Yeah, I know what the people are really performing because I see the projects, I see the results, but I also talk to them in the kitchen, in regular meetings, in reviews, and so on. I know what great work they're doing, and I appreciate this.
Viktor, being part of a startup means often working on a product with a transformative mission. Mission is here the here word, and carrying a strong sense of purpose. But as often as that, this comes along with a significant amount of messiness, working long hours. In your position, you're very much in charge of alignment of different teams, and also the alignment between the teams, I would guess so. Would you say that that certain amount of chaos is necessary to drive innovation for transformative ideas to develop?
So I wouldn't say it's necessary, but I would say that in certain situations it can be helpful. So it can be used. It's not always, it has, as everything, it has its positive and negative effect, but it can be used. And one way that we sometimes see that it can be very beneficial is that when you have, let's say, less constrained task and less constrained let's say path before you, even on the lowest level, as the person who gets the bottom of the chain, so to say, their tasks for the day, for the week, for the month, you are able to apply creativity there. And in many cases, there's now what is important is to have a kind of a feedback, so that this creativity does not take you outside of what you actually had to accomplish. So you should always have this kind of feedback. But I think that here some chaos and some ambiguity in what people need to do can actually be beneficial. Of course, it's up to the people, because sometimes people just don't like having too much freedom in what they do. There's different kinds of people here, but creative people, they thrive with a little chaos. So I think that this is the key point. There's people who are just a little more focused on very specific tasks. They know what they do. They're very good at what they do, but they want to stay in that zone. But there's also people who want to go a little outside and a little outside and want to see a little more. And these people usually are encouraged by chaos and collaborating a little more freely with a little less structure with others.
Ivelina, as a certified project manager, I guess you're pretty much, familiar with this, with these questions. Would you say that chaos and messiness drives innovation? Is it necessary in creative teams?
It depends on how you formulate chaos, I would say. And maybe I could now come up with about 3 definitions, I guess, or 4. And to give you the background of which I would think when answering the question, ditto on what Viktor said about the flat structure, that's what we have at Documaster as well. At the Bulgarian office, 40-something people, the Swedish one, a very small one, I believe less than 5, the Norwegian one, 10, 20 people. flat structure. So if you start by probably the standard definition of chaos, which would be utter disorder, confusion, nobody needs that. I would say no. Then if you define it as changing priorities due to client needs and market needs, I would say that is something we all have to live with. And yes, it is there, and to a certain amount, to a healthy amount, yes, we got to work with it. And if you say that you need it in order to be creative, I totally agree, and we also do that. We tell people what the goal is, and we discuss together how this could be achieved, because someone else might come up with a better idea, but that I wouldn't define as chaotic, but rather as creativity. There is something that comes to my mind when I talk about it, and when you said controlled chaos as well. Documaster was doing hackathons back in the time, which we want to start doing again. It's kind of a controlled chaos, because for 1 or 2 days, people are free to do something, whatever they would like to do, and nobody would know what they're working on. And as I know, great ideas have been coming up out of those days. So to a certain healthy degree, yes, but not too much.
Okay, not too much. I guess it pretty much depends also on the personal design of how much chaos you can endure or not. Because I had different colleagues who have different needs. Sometimes they need a bit more structure to feel productive, to feel at home in work, and others, like myself, are totally against structures and need a bit of chaos to feel free. For young professionals, and I guess that some of them are actually watching us tonight, who are struggling with this decision, startup or corporate life, and for them in their situation, learning on the job and developing a career path is critical, is very important. Would you say that is a startup or a corporate job better for your career in the long run? I would like to start with Thomas.
It completely depends on, first of all, what kind of character you are. And then I would also say it doesn't disclose each other. So we have a lot of great people who started working in a startup and then joined us. And also we have people who unfortunately left us and now are super happy and are making a great career in a startup. So as I tried to explain before, I think corporates are moving more in this agile, flexible structure. Also from a project management point of view, startups, when they are scaling, they also get bigger and adapt some processes. So I think sooner or later those worlds are merging, and for me it's not in black and white. Yeah. And for me, the reason why I chose a company like Bosch to be the start of my career, and I'm still with Bosch, is for me back then it was just this great chance of potentials. Being able to do different functions like sales, engineering, marketing, automotive, industrial products, consumer products within like one company working. I was in the US, in Germany, now I'm here in Bulgaria. So this for me was like the trigger, but it was my personal trigger where I said like, okay, this company is offering me so much combined with cool things where we make the world better. That's my motivation. And my recommendation to every person out there who's right now in the moment of having to take a decision is really look on what's motivating you. That would be my first question. And then the second question is, don't look so much about companies, startup, but really look to the people you will be working with on a daily basis. Do you match with those people? And if you have the motivation and the right guys around you, then give it a go.
Severina? Startup or corporate life, which is better on the long run for the career?
So you can learn a lot about the business in a small company size. You have so broad overview, you know what is happening and why it's happening that way, which can be really really helpful for someone that just begins their career. And something that they're gonna learn is that teamwork is very important, because yes, we value the individual's contribution, but we can reach our goals only if we work as a team. And yes, in the corporates, you have established procedures, you have processes, you have documentation, you can go there, you can learn, and that will help a lot for your work. But actually, in a startup, you can help establish those processes, and that's very rewarding, and will help you gain a really good experience for your future. It doesn't matter that that person will decide to continue in startup or in corporate company.
Mm. Ivelina, what is your opinion? Startup or corporate? You had both worlds, pretty much.
Yep, indeed. I would say it depends on the person. One should start by exploring their own beliefs and values in order to understand, just like you said, what they're comfortable with. If they're comfortable with more structure, with processes and documentation, then enterprise is better. If they're more creative and need space, then I would say startup. For a person who is open to both, I would say that a young person will probably very likely feel better in a startup at first, because they would see the impact. It is much easier to see the impact there, because at bigger enterprises, it takes time to make changes. It takes time to make innovations. Then switching to an enterprise would also be good, to take a look at best practices, know-how. There is a lot of new stuff and qualitative stuff there as well. And at the end, why not go back to the startup in order not to do something that the enterprise has done and you didn't like? So it's not black and white. One can mix and match, but for sure has to look on what it is that they value in order to choose correctly.
Mm. Victor, what do you think?
I think that both for people, so absolutely agree first with what both of you said, and of course with you as well. I think that since I'm last, I should just say that I agree. But I have one original contribution maybe, that I believe that the two are merging into each other at some point, because no startup will remain a startup for 20 years. Either they're gonna go to something like a corporate or okay. So I think that with people is similar. People who really like to learn, people who want to know and who are curious to go again. It's about, I imagine it as a kind of a bubble of what you can do and what you want to do, what you want to learn. And there's people who like the interface of where they are and where other people are, and they want to go a little outside, and they want to know more about what lies beyond what they normally do. And these people, they thrive a lot more in startups, I think, in the beginning, because they have this chance. There's usually, one person taking several roles. They can explore different things. Maybe it's chaotic, maybe it's a bit harder, but they can grow a lot in this way. But of course, in the end, when you go to a big company, of course, the startup becomes a big company. The person grows themselves. So I think that eventually both depend on the person and how they grow. And this growth may include many startups, may include many corporations, but companies that have a purpose and companies that really are believed in by the employees, I think that they make this growth with their employees. So this is a major contribution. So I think that what you said is exactly true, and people grow out of startups sometimes, but I think that startups also grow with their people, and that this is maybe one very interesting way that you could be in both in the same company.
I would like to now take a look at the questions that already came from the audience. I don't know if we will manage to answer them all. Maybe to the first one, which is connected also again with the COVID situation. Each of you maybe can add an advice of how you can make new team members who have started after the pandemic feel like part of the team. Maybe a best practice that you have observed, because each of you has shared that they had a lot of new colleagues which were onboarded even actually during the quarantine. Victor, your best piece of advice?
I think that having talks, so having a lot of spending some time with them, even if it's online, not just giving them some videos or some materials to review or whatever, but really spending some time, even if it's online. I think this is the only really good way to onboard someone. So personal time matters. It's not just about procedures.
Severina?
So we organize meetings with all teams, not the whole teams, but team members, introducing what exactly the team is doing and how it's contributing. On the first day, we're sending a welcome mail with a picture of the new person. So when someday we meet in the office, you can recognize each other. Have a lot of communication. We have prepared some on-board documentation that we share with the new people. So they feel good, actually. I have feedback from newcomers, and they feel welcomed and really helped in the very beginning.
Ivelina?
I agree with Viktor. The best way would be to talk, because if you do not have the luxury of seeing someone, the next level of communication is talking with each other over the phone, and only the last one is chat, of course. So I would say talk with each other, get to know the people, ask them if they have a pet, what their dog's name is, ask them if their kids are going to school, if they like it. Talk about whatever you would love to, and get to know them, and that's gonna make things better, I'm sure. We didn't have so many people. I believe we only had two new colleagues that I have never seen. I saw them once only, but that would be my recommendation as well. Talk.
Thomas, how do you welcome the new members?
Well, we have, I would say, a benchmark case, a colleague who joined us on Monday. Maybe he's also listening and then, of course, confirming what I'm saying. Because he was in the lucky situation. So everybody of our new colleagues, of course, gets some upfront information. He's welcomed on the first day by HR, gets some introduction and so on. But then he also gets like a personal colleague, sparringspartner on like colleague level who is really helping him to get settled in the environment. And why I'm saying we have a benchmark example is on Monday we also had a team building. We went wakeboarding with like 15 people. And this guy immediately had the chance to see like the team because we were doing some activity together. And I'm not mentioning this because it's like a standard case, but I'm mentioning this because my idea is I think it will be very, very hard for quite some time to get together all of the people in one company when you're bigger than, let's say, 30, 40, yeah, just because of social distancing. And the clear priority must be on health and keeping the people as distant as necessary. So that's why our recipe is really to scale it down a little bit and say, okay, this is a company, that's all the colleagues you're working with, you will get to know them, but this is like your team you're in, that's the 5 people you have to deal with every day, and try to come together. Meet in the office if you all feel comfortable with, go to a team building, grab a drink, whatsoever, and this is like the one person who's responsible for you and who's guiding you in this process. You can ask everything what you want to know, of course in addition with dialogues with the manager and with the HR team.
Okay, so socializing. So no social distancing, maybe physical one, but social connection.
No.
Okay, I'm going to the next question, which is also kind of interesting, and it goes more to the startup companies. So corporations are considered better at developing talent through more structured training and career paths. How do startups can manage this to bridge this gap? Viktor?
Well, in our case, we have a lot of, as I mentioned before, a lot of studying opportunities. We actually try to encourage people to put a lot of initiative into this, and whatever is their interest, whatever is their passion and whatever they want to go, really to push them in that direction and to help them develop themselves in that direction. So we do this through allowing them to have courses. We do sometimes ourselves internal courses. So we do a lot of learning and sharing in between ourselves. So this is a very nice thing that I believe in our culture. If you know something and if someone else in the team wants to learn this, you teach them. So this is something that we do a lot. And of course, in a startup, this is relatively, with a few people, it's relatively easy to do. With a bigger team, it probably gets harder. But I think that the structure of learning is not always the best way of learning. Sometimes the person's passion and giving them the resources to follow their passion into what they want to learn eats structure.
What about climbing the career ladder? It's kind of impossible in a startup, or no?
That's not true.
Okay.
I would personally disagree, especially because sometimes you are allowed in a startup to move into neighboring fields more than you would normally. So I think that you are allowed to show skills such as leadership skills, which originally may not have been known that you possess. You are allowed to show them a little more, I think, in a startup, or at least in a small team. I think this also applies, I think, for a small team neighboring other teams in a bigger corporation. But yeah.
Severina,
Can
how
you
would
please
repeat the question?
Yes,
of course. Corporations are considered better at developing talent through more structured training and career paths. How do startups manage to bridge the gap?
Okay, we have internal trainings. We have great professionals. They love to share their experience, their knowledge. That's very helpful. We have a lot of videos uploaded and shared with the whole company that we share with the newcomers, and we support every team member that decides to learn something. Actually, the companies cover the expenditures, so we are happy when someone decides to learn something new and really encourage them.
Okay.
So maybe it's not that big difference, because yes, the corporates has internal trainings too, but it's very important for us to develop our talents.
Okay, this is moving fast. The next question is also kind of...
Can I just jump
Yes.
in here? Something that I missed to say to everyone, actually, because I was so focused on discussing internally what happens that I forgot to mention to all of you.
Yeah.
We don't actually only have trainings internally. We even have about 150 hours free and available to everyone about space. So if you are interested, we actually have, and we are supporting one of the biggest educational programs about space. It's called Spaceport. So if you are interested, go to spaceport.bg. So I think that the logo here is very thematic to to the spaceport, and check it out. We have, since we've had a lot of guests from all around the world, from organizations like NASA, like ESA, Stanford, and so on. We have filmed these people, and we have uploaded this and made it into a big online portal, like a game. Internally, we have a challenge in this, apart from everything else. So every week, actually, employees from EnduroSat, we check their scores in this game/learning experience. But it's also free to everyone else. So if you're interested, we'd be happy to have you as our learners. We have about 18,000 people from around the world right now in the platform.
We can add this information afterwards in the communication. Thank you for that. So the next question I would try to combine two questions, because I think they address the same point, and it's pretty much on work-life balance. Where is work-life balance achievable? Easier in startups or in corporations? And I also kind of, like the opposite, the next question, which is kind of, the opposite. What is the recipe for surviving from burnout in the startup ecosystem? So how do you maintain this work-life balance? How do you maintain this hygiene in the work so that you don't burn out? Is it easier in a startup, or is it easier in a corporation? What do you think, Thomas?
I think there is no difference, because as we together discussed before, if you put purpose to what you're doing, if you know what you're working for, what your target is, you don't care if your framework is in startup or in corporate. You will work as much as you think you need, and I think then it's up to everybody to keep the balance. No? It might be a little bit easier in big companies, because there might be, I don't know, if I'm responsible for let's say sales and marketing, maybe in a startup I'm the only guy and I have to create turnover, and in a company there are like 5 other people who I can say, hey, can you help me with this and that? But in the end it always comes to self-responsibility. how deal I with my work-life balance and how much do I decide that I want to work.
Ivelina, what do you think?
I agree that it depends more on the person than on the company. And in our case, I believe we're a little bit more lucky than the others because we have the chance to learn from the Scandinavians. And they're for sure a great example. I can say that there are people who, when it comes to taking a kid from a kindergarten, we know it's important. We deal with that. You wouldn't schedule a meeting at that time, and I for sure admire their way of doing things. And if you have to do something that urgent, well, I have seen that you can spend your 2 hours with the family now while it's probably dinner time, and then do something afterwards. But I can't say that I have felt stress, and I can't say that at Documaster my work-life balance has been hindered in any way. So for sure it depends on the person and how one handles it. So be open, and yes, the Scandinavian way is a great one.
Severina, what do you think?
I can share my experience. I had a great struggle with that life-work balance in one of my previous companies, and that was really stressful for me and all of my co-workers. But something that I really appreciate here in AtScale, that we have flexible working time. That means that I can go to the doctor, I can go to pick my kids from the school, and if I want, I can work in 3 a.m. The thing that is, the work should be done, it doesn't matter when. So in the day, I can do my personal things if I need to, and my work does not struggle, and I do not feel stressed. So I think that this is something that I really appreciate.
What about you, Viktor?
Yeah,
How close are you to burnout in the startup?
depends on who you ask. So yeah, I absolutely agree. We have a very similar philosophy. As I mentioned previously, we are very target oriented. So the thing is that if someone can achieve their target and if they can meet their goals, we don't care if they do it at 2 a.m. As you mentioned, or during the day. We do, however, believe that there should be this kind of let's say showing how people are performing. So we don't really ask people to put more time. We ask them to deliver results. So if people can do more in less time, perfect. That's perfect for us. If they struggle, we always try to avoid this thing that this word burnout. We try to help people, and we really encourage them to ask for help, because in the startup it can be hard. Sometimes you're the only one who has a function, but we've been very I'd say patient in a sense that we always try to find people who can help. So even if someone is really struggling, even if there's a big project and they know that they have a deadline, typically people themselves, they feel responsible, and this is something because they believe that what they're doing really matters. So they feel responsible. They can put additional hours, but then we give them back to them. So they are compensated for this. So this is something that I believe is the way forward, target oriented and flexible in the sense that if you achieve this, that's it.
I totally share your, and I actually would like to also share an experience that I had with a friend of mine who he went through this burnout phase, and he was working for a corporation, so it's pretty much actually possible to have this in a large company. And the problem wasn't the amount of work, it wasn't the stress. The problem was the fact that he was working, but he wasn't seeing the results of his work, and that was frustrating. So I guess target-oriented and also making visible, or I don't know, perceiving what's the result of what you've done is critical for this, avoiding this situation. As for work-life balance, yeah.
And here again, it's the type of people, because there are people who, if you give them, if they finish their task, they're just going to go on. There is the kind of people who just say, no, this is my time for the day. I need to spend it with my family. So it's the type of people and the way that you feel comfortable.
And also personal responsibility to put the limit. I'm going to the next question. Corporations are considered safer, yet they make layoffs. Startups are considered risky, yet people tend to stick to the ecosystem. What is safer nowadays?
Mid-size.
Mid-size, okay.
No, I really think that there is actual research on that.
Mm.
Because indeed enterprises do lay off people, and that is, I would say, part of their business. Startups, they strive to stay on the market. So if someone is looking for complete stability, I guess mid-size. But it also depends on the business, on the niche, on so many factors that even a startup can be considered much more stable than a mid-size.
Thomas, what do you think?
I can only talk for Bosch because
Yeah.
like that's the only company I was working with, and Bosch is not an stock listed company. It's like an foundation, which means that one of the highest values is that Bosch is not laying off people, and here for Sofia. What we did quite wisely is that we set up our engineering center, I think, in the right spot because, as you might know, the automotive industry overall is not in such a good shape. But what we are doing here is really hitting the trends which will grow in the future: automated driving, connectivity, electrification of the cars. And with this, speaking for Bosch here in Bulgaria and for the engineering center, our jobs are not only safe, but looking really to a very, very nice future and to a growing business.
What about a startup in the space industry? Is it safe to have a job in this sector?
Yeah, as I think, as you mentioned, of course, it would never be, if you don't take any kind of risk, you typically cannot grow. So you cannot say that you're 100% safe, no risk at all. But so far, our experience has been that a lot of, I'd say it like this, a lot of companies that were considered a lot more secure, immediately after the COVID, we saw some negative feedback. And in general, space is a very safe area in a sense that there is always a demand. Our world right now around us is built around communication technologies, and this is one thing that we focus a lot on. So far, we consider ourselves to be as stable as they come, basically. And based on our results for the past 3 years, for which we've been on the market, I would say that I haven't seen a big corporation. Again, I can speak only for EnduroSat, but I would consider this safe.
Severina, I'm also curious about your opinion. I mean, you perceive that also probably in the interviews with people or job candidates are asking quite often.
Yes, and I have a very good answer for them. So AtScale is not that big company, but we have huge clients. So maybe it depends on the business, because our business is developing now really fast, and we are hiring people. We are not dismissing anyone, and we have a few examples of huge companies here that are closing their offices here in Sofia. So maybe it depends on the business, because our business is really stable, and we are really confident that we are just going to grow.
Okay. So the answer is it depends on the business, not the size of the company. It makes sense. Yes?
Something interesting here. Just like you said, for example, our business is making software for the archive world, which may not sound that sexy, but is actually something that organizations in Norway, where our main market is, need. And there is an actual law that has to be followed, and a standard called NOARC, latest version 5.x, and that is what I would also call, just like you called space, stable. So that's why I also said depends on the niche.
The last question is kind of very particular, and I don't know which of the companies offer this option to their employees, but based on your observations, are stock options really a motivator for people to start a particular job? How is it at EnduroSat? Do you have this option for employees?
Yeah, so at EnduroSat we have this option, but it must be deserved. So
Yeah,
it's
of
not
course.
something that you that it's
Of
and
course.
this is how we believe everything should be. So you should prove yourself to get to that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that it's an immediate motivator, especially depending on how easy or how hard it may be to get these. But I believe that there is also motivation because people know that they're actually working every time that the company is growing and gaining and becoming bigger. They know that they're also gaining with it. This, of course, is true also on salary level, on way of life, and so on, even without this stock option. But I think that it can be beneficial for some people. But once again, if your culture and if what you believe in is set properly, and if the people really believe in their goal, this is just a side bonus. It's not the main driver.
It's not the main driver.
I don't think it's the thing that converts, let's say.
Okay.
I also believe that the stock options are not the main motivator. I'm seeing the IT specialists, they're looking for something interesting to do, to work with the new technologies. And I've seen people that are leaving the corporations and joining our team just because of the technologies. So maybe it's not that important, the salary and all the other benefits, but what you can learn actually from your job, because that is what is important. You're going to spend your money, but the knowledge will last.
Okay. What do you think? Do you have this option at Documaster in some
Yes.
way? Yes, you
Yes,
do?
we
Okay.
do. I would say atmosphere is more lucrative for sure, work
Okay.
atmosphere, but at least in my opinion, having the chance to take part in such a program, in our case it's called an incentive program, but yes, to buy stocks is
Okay.
a great way to actually take part in the company. In our case, yes, you do have to deserve it. You gotta be an employee of the company for at least 6 months to be able to take part in the next round. And as far as I know, all of our colleagues are taking part of it in it, and this talks to me that it is probably very interesting, just like I perceive it. I perceive it as something nice, very, very, very nice, because not all companies do that.
Okay. What about Bosch? I have to admit now I don't know the corporate structure of Bosch. Are you a public company? I guess so. That
Well, we are
makes
not
sense.
stock listed. We are a private company.
Okay.
We are, at least for speaking for Germany, the biggest foundation. Everything what we earn, like all our profit, is either reinvested in the company for future
Oh, yes.
innovations, or the foundation is using it for good causes like poverty, education, you name it. That's why, unfortunately, we don't offer stock options. But fortunately, I think we are paying back in another way. That me personally, it motivates a lot that I know that the money which I work for hard is causing something good in the world. Yeah, that the profit is used by the foundations. That's motivating me a lot. And speaking here for the Bosch Engineering Center in Sofia, I will rephrase it a little bit and talk more generally about compensation, financial compensation. We pay, I would say, good competitive salaries, yeah? But it's not our main focus. Our main focus is really the purpose of work to create those innovations, and that you have the chance to work together with a great team, a family, on fantastic things. This is really like the two things which we are pushing and where we put our focus on. And of course, although the money, it has to be okay because, yeah, it's an hygiene factor, yeah. But the two other things, innovation and team, family, that's what is more important from my perception.
There is this nice German word, Existenzminimum.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you very much. Before we finish, I would like to thank to each of you for joining us tonight. I really loved your answers, and as we figured out, it's not the company size that matters, it's the company culture, I think. I would like to summarize it like that. And you can have a comfortable, a cozy, motivating and innovative corporate culture in a startup, in a corporation. It pretty much depends on how do you establish that with the team, with the people who are working there. So it's we can focus a bit more on the human part. During COVID, after COVID, before COVID was that, I guess that those companies who did their homework on paying attention to the human factor, they managed to go through the pandemic a bit easier. Others were more or less forced to do that during the pandemic. But we remain the same. We remain still social animals. Yeah. The whole discussion has been recorded. Of course, we'll put it on the channels of Trending Topics for replay. You can watch it and rewatch it again. You can also send us your feedback, critics. You can also go to the polls on Slido, and you can vote which should be the next topic we should be discussing in approximately a month. I believe that we will do it in the same constellation hybrid, so you can join us in person, physically. You can go and watch us online, whatever you choose. And I think that's it. Maybe you would like to say something at the end before we say bye, at least to those who watch us online.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
We wish Launchy, as this is my first time at Launchy, we wish Launchy a great culture, as we see that it's a great place.
This is something that maybe I should mention again. Thank you, Launchy, for hosting us. You did a great job yet again. This is the place where you have to be if you want to do online events. It's our, I don't know, like third experience already. And bye to those who watch us online, and to the others, let's have a beer.
Thank you.